Hello darklings, lightlings, and everyone in between. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to dive a bit deeper into our spiritual alchemy. Got lots to talk about, some good deep stuff. But first I wanted to give a little shout out and say thank you to Jasmine and to Rachele. You know who you are. You bought me some coffee, which means you're entered in the giveaway, and I really appreciate your love and support. So, I would like to start this with a quote from Carl Jung, which I've grown to really admire his work. And the quote is, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making darkness conscious," which is what we're talking about, right? Kind of opened the door for this discussion yesterday, and I want to go a bit deeper on some points while working on your spiritual alchemy. So first, let's define exoteric alchemy versus esoteric alchemy. Exoteric alchemy is transmuting a lesser physical substance like lead into a higher substance like gold, physical elements. Esoteric alchemy is transmuting the lesser self or base nature into our higher selves, spiritually or psychologically. Carl Jung's teachings is based around the process of synthesis of the self, which mainly consists of merging the unconscious with the conscious, and we all know about his archetypes and his shadow work. Lovely work. If you want to really dive deep on this, I suggest looking up Carl Jung's work. Okay, so the only way to transmutate your spirit or consciousness is to descend into the darkest aspects of the self and spirituality before one can ascend to light, which we discussed in our last video, which will be put up in a card up at the top. If you are interested, I recommend checking that out before going further with this. So therefore, we are transmutating the lesser self into the higher self. We as humans in the physical realm of Earth assimilate reality in 4 ways during the death and rebirth and growth process in our spirituality. The steps in the process of growth, or the death and rebirth stages, are as follows, which I mentioned kind of different ways the mind works or how we operate spiritually while going through the death and rebirth stage in the last video. So number 1 would be denial, the first stage of looking within as without in the lesser self before our symbolic death occurs, is denying that there is anything dark or wrong with the spirit or reality of the person. The second would be projection. As we deny that part of our lesser selves, we tend to project outward in our reality what we are denying to ourselves, which we kind of have seen that a lot this year, haven't we? I've said before that I feel like this year a lot of people are collectively going through like a mass shadow work. We've seen all kinds of denial and projections all over the internet. I mean, we even have a word called Karen now for people. We see examples of this all the time in people, and especially this year. So the next part would be integration. We are called to action in our spiritual journey, and we start to descend within the darkness of the psyche, activating the start of integrating our higher and lower selves. Transmutation is the final. Now we have become aware of the different aspects of the self. We are no longer denying or projecting, but instead acknowledging and aware of who we are, and we begin to know thyself. Another quote I added was, "Know thyself and you will know the universe." To achieve this higher state of consciousness, it is no easy task. It is emotionally, mentally, and physically draining, but a must for growth in our spiritual path. And in life, one could argue. There are many things to consider to achieve the integration during the higher self and the shadow, and ultimately the transmutated version of you into something greater than. So now let's discuss the Anima and the Animus, and how balancing the masculine and feminine inside of us can help us as we transmute our spirit or our spiritual alchemy. The anima is the male's unconscious projection of the female archetype, usually molded unconsciously from the mother archetype in his life as a child. This is the male's desire and fantasy and is unconscious of the feminine. If it is unbalanced, it can show in his reality through what he perceives and projects. So an example, I just kind of threw in a couple of them to tell if you're kind of unbalanced, because we all hold masculine and feminine energy inside of us, and we're going to get deeper into that here in a bit. But these are just ways to become aware that we're unbalanced in that aspect. So say a male is addicted to an erotic club or bar because he is chasing his ideal desired female or his anima, and they're usually unaware of this. The animus is the female's unconscious projection of the male archetype, usually molded unconsciously through the father, uncle, brother, etc. archetypes in her life as a child. This is the female's desired or fantasy in her unconscious mind. It can show in her reality through projection as well. If unbalanced, it can project in many ways. An example would be when you hear someone say that girl has daddy issues. Or she may find herself more attracted to toxic relationships or partnerships. And of course, this will depend on the person's experience in childhood with the archetypes that shaped the anima and animus, but even positive experiences with the archetypes growing up can have negative effects on this topic. Example, a son and his mother had an excellent relationship and a perfect childhood, if there is such thing, but this can lead to the man later being taken advantage of by a female and integrate those negative experiences into his unconscious and changing his perception of his anima. We all have both masculine and feminine energy within us. One is more dominant, however, but considering how each complete each other, it is important to do the shadow work on your anima or animus to balance out these energies and truly integrate instead of hindering your spiritual alchemical journey. So let's go over the different sides of both masculine and feminine energies and talk a little bit about that in like duality. So the masculine is known to be the left brain, right, or the left side, and associated with the sun. They are said to be analytical, logical, precise, repetitive, organized, idealistic, scientific, detached, literal, and sequential. The feminine, or right-brained, and also one of the symbols for her is the moon. Creative, imaginative, general, intuitive, conceptual, big picture, empathetic, irregular, and figurative. We see examples of them merging and balanced in things like the Merkaba symbol and the yin and yang, or many other dualistic symbology. The merging of the two, which is an alchemical union of the two. In turn, this creates harmony in the energy and the psyche. So even if you do not have a partner, you hear women say about men, oh, he's in touch with his feminine side, or, a woman could be quite masculine. It's really about finding that balance within, integrating both of these aspects, the sun and the moon, merging them together to have all of these characteristics in a balanced, harmonious way. So I argue that this should be practiced with your spiritual alchemy, lest you continue to reintegrate these unbalanced things back into your shadow. We don't want to move up and come so far in our journey and transmutating the self just to have these unbalanced qualities hinder our growth, right? So I'm giving you multiple different aspects or things to work on while working on your spiritual alchemy. And I hope that it does help somebody. So we are in a very dualistic reality. We see it in everything, perhaps to give the illusion of black and white, but the key is the gray area. So now we're going to talk about the triad symbols in our inner flames. While I began my work with Azazel, I was aware of the black flame. I'm sure you've heard of other practitioners talk about it or mention it. But something is burning inside of my heart center. I feel it in many situations, especially while practicing magic. So what can we speculate this to be? First, let's look at the triad symbology in the world. One is the Father, the Mother, and the Holy Ghost, or the Son, or in Catholicism. In Egypt, we have Osiris, Isis, and Horus. Christianity, we have Jehovah, Mary, Jesus, or in Catholicism. And respectively in the Hindu pantheon, Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, which we're going to talk about them in the threefold flame. So it is said in the Hindu pantheon that hidden in the heart's center is the threefold flame, also known as our divine spark, or the spear that holds our soul. And there are three flames: blue, yellow, and pink. Blue is the masculine. Yellow, in my opinion, is akin to our black flame. That is my own theory, my own thoughts about this. You can research what it really kind of means is creativity. And it is yellow, however, I really relate that to what we talk about as the black flame. And pink is the feminine. So the blue flame represents the masculine and power. The pink flame represents the feminine and love. And the yellow is our wisdom. This also represents the balance of thoughts, emotions, and then action. If we take this into consideration of what these archetypes and symbols tell us, we must balance these flames in our heart's chambers and continue our journey into spiritual alchemy. Thank you for tuning in, guys, and as you see, I've been going hard, I've been going deep, and I'm really excited to continue this path working and bring you this information. Let me know how you like it. Let me know how you like my thoughts. And the quality as well. In case you haven't noticed, got a computer now, trying to up my game a little. So let me know how it's working for you. So hopefully this is interesting and it can open up doors into your own path, give you something to think about, something to elaborate on. And next we're going to be going over the 7 steps of alchemy and how we can use them in an esoteric way. Much love and thank you.